Welcome to Northport, Florida. A few years ago, this was the fastest growing community in the United States. Interestingly, now it is the worst real estate market in the country. Alright guys, now Northport is in Sarasota County, and as always, YouTubers and the media distort the narrative of the reality of who was moving here and why. So let's dive a little bit deeper into what actually happened when Northport was growing. At the start of immigration arrests in Florida, we started to notice that in Southwest Florida, quite a few of the people being arrested lived here in Northport. So who was actually moving to Northport and why? So now there's a lot of real estate available here because people are realizing that they're not going to keep doing that. So yeah, there was kind of a distorted narrative of who was moving to Northport, why they were moving here. So right here, you got two brand new houses right next to each other for sale. People next door got garbage outside. And look how unsightly this is. I wonder what problems they've had that caused them to do that. Here's one of many houses for sale out here now. So how does Northport grow to be the fastest city in the United States and not long after the worst real estate market? That's the question we really got to answer today. So one thing I've learned about Northport is that people here can be really freaking petty. You got some old, bitter people here. Notice how this person put up like a railing with a no parking sign to keep their neighbors from parking on their grass. Both parking on your neighbor's grass and putting up that sign are both petty crap. But that's kind of like the type of people you get here. You get some like really petty, snobby old people. And then you get some people that just don't give a crap. Like these people here, they got a basketball hoop sitting sideways. Their lawn is in horrible condition. And then they got cars that they're working on in the driveway, electrical cords hanging everywhere. And then, you know, the people next door keep their property a little bit cleaner, so they start calling the county, and it turns into a snitch-a-thon. So what you're starting to see in Northport is a lot of houses like this. It's a newer house. They just built it. Nobody's living in it. The grass is overgrown. And eventually, if they don't start taking care of it, that grass is going to creep through the doors. The grass is going to creep through the air conditioning units and destroy the whole property. So this is becoming kind of a normal sight here, overgrown properties like this. They built them, nobody moved in. So as I'm driving through these neighborhoods doing my videos, I noticed a guy hiding behind a column. He saw me, wondered what I was doing, and he's hiding behind a column, like watching me. You got a lot of retired people here with a lot of time on their hands. But it's really weird, like there's all these like old guys that have like too much time on their hands. And when they see you drive down their street, they will walk outside, they pretend they're looking at their cars, and they're just like watching you to see what you're doing. Well, why are you on my street?
It's literally easier to drive through the worst hoods in America than to drive through Old Fartville.
¿Qué se han encontrado, amigos? I think it's a raccoon. David, you better sell this house. You know what, David? Talk to the guy across the street. He needs to sell that piece of crap, too. Gangsta font right there. How would you like to buy a new home in Northport, Florida? Huh? So right here, they're building a brand new house, but the one next to it's for sale, and the one on the other side's for sale. So if you got these two houses sitting here and they're selling them, why the crap are you building another one? I'm not sure what these cables are, but if I had to take a guess, I think they're finally installing internet out here. And for some reason I don't understand, there are construction sites going up everywhere. I think a lot of people signed contracts and ordered materials, and now they're probably wondering why the crap they did it. And then you got places like this right here. I mean, completely abandoned, overgrown. This is something you're actually seeing now in Northport. That's crazy. Reminiscent of like the last recession. And then there's this house right here. The garage itself is the size of a house, and I guess they collect Mercedes-Benz's. But look at the size of this house. And it looks like they're gonna get a pool in it too, so giant. So on this remote street in the middle of nowhere, they just built 3 houses, 2 on this side and 1 across the street. And the one across the street kind of looks abandoned, but hey, you know, construction sites are moving slow out here. But they are building. I mean, these are just freshly built right here. They're still building these. So lots of new construction. ¿Qué pasa, primo? Hola. So they're still building out here. It's not over. Looks like they're starting this one right here. This looks like a new build they recently started. I'm not sure why there's broken cinder blocks everywhere. But other than that, it looks like they're starting this one apparently. I'm not sure. Homies are working in the rain. Guys, they are literally building 3 to 4 houses on every single street. This one looks like it might be abandoned though. Looks like this one's paralyzed, but they're building like on every single street. They're building houses out here. Just look down all these streets. There's new houses going in on every single one. Yeah, it goes without saying that in order to build this many houses, you need a crap load of undocumented people. Dude, on every single one of these streets, they're still building 3 to 4 houses. All the workers are Hondurans and Nicaraguans. And it's crazy because some of these construction sites look abandoned. Like this one right here, you can see the grass is kind of overgrown, and they ain't gonna finish this one. This one's abandoned. So just look around, dude. Like this one right here, this ain't going. Rent to own options available. Okay, do you want to buy a house here? Rent to own options available. I'll pass. But look, that's abandoned right there.
Yeah.
I ain't going nowhere. And they got problems with the financing. That's why they're offering rent to own. So here they're building. Oh, there's a white person, Katie. There's one white. It's an inspector though. It's the inspector's the only white person out there. The inspector's the only white person out there. Look how much garbage in that store. Man, the inspectors are all white people out here.
Oh yeah, you're not gonna find one out here.
Dude, there is a white person there. It's an inspector. Katie said, yeah. Katie's like, there's no white people out here. And then like we pull up and there's an inspector. I'm not gonna lie, these all look like abandoned sites. Out here make no sense whatsoever. It's almost it's understandable that these people have a bunch of garbage on their front lawn. They're trying to make the neighborhood look as trashy as possible for these new builds. Can't blame them. But they do got the inspectors out here, making sure everything is up to point. That's the county right there. The inspectors, Charlotte County inspectors. I told you it was Ellington. Ready to build. Miami phone number. Piece of land. How would you like to own some land in Northport? On the corner of Ellington and Stanfield Avenue, we have a construction site that is most definitely abandoned. It doesn't look like there's much going on here. Looks like somebody might be living in a shed in the back. A lot of people buy these empty lots and they don't know what they're buying. You buy one of these empty pieces of land and you got a protected gopher tortoise on it, and you won't be able to build. Keep buying stuff you don't know what the crap you're buying. I'll tell you what, that's brand pankin' poo right there. You caught a Tasha down there that didn't know relationship, man. So this is the part of Northport where things get a little interesting. The older neighborhoods. You have the newer, fast-growing areas like we were earlier, and then you have the older neighborhoods like this, where homes are more affordable and where it's almost impossible to get an insurance company to cover your home, because this is one of the most hurricane-propense areas in Florida. And on top of that, these are old houses. Insurance companies don't want to touch these properties. And it's in these older neighborhoods where a problem arises. Obviously, you have the explosion of new home construction, the fastest in the United States a few years ago. But those people building those houses, as you see, are Nicaraguans, Hondurans, and other undocumented people. Even with all the talk about alligator Alcatraz and deportations and all the things that are going on now, it's clear to see that most of the new construction happening here is being done by undocumented people. Probably the only people that's got papers is the inspector, the contractor, and the buyer, and the realtor. Everybody else in these projects is undocumented. It's not hard to tell. Right behind me is the po-po dog. On that side, you got Sarasota County, the sheriff's office, and they've been making some arrests for people without no driver's license. On that side, Charlotte County, now they have been arresting an incredible amount of people driving with no valid driver's license that are undocumented. But the point being that there's a lot of undocumented people working in these construction sites, even driving heavy equipment and vehicles. They've been pulling people over out here working with no valid driver's license, and they're all getting the ICE deportation hold. You have also a lot of Brazilians. The area near Warm Mineral Springs has attracted Germans and British people and Europeans from all over the world, as well as white people from small islands. So there's quite the influx of undocumented people here. And then there's a huge number of Ukrainians and Russians as well. And really, when you look at the analytics for this area, if you were to discount the Ukrainians, the Russians, the Brazilians, the British, and all the Europeans that have moved out here, a lot of Germans, Italians, if you were to discount all those people, it would account for roughly the growth that this area has had. In other words, much of the growth that Northport had wasn't people from other states moving here. There were quite a few. Most of that growth actually came from undocumented people of European descent. Now, why is that? Why did so many Europeans end up in this area? We're about to go into an area known as Warm Mineral Springs, and that, as the name would clearly suggest, warm mineral springs. The so-called possible fountain of youth that the Spaniards were looking for possibly exists here in Northport, an area known as Warm Mineral Springs. And that attracted a lot of people from a lot of places. Europeans have historically vacationed in this area with the belief that the mineral springs have special properties. It's a thing that Europeans believe in, or something that Europeans like. They like the notion of living near a warm mineral spring. It's very common in Europe, and it's something that Europeans like. So this odd and peculiar geographic feature of the topography here has attracted quite a few Europeans. And thus, that's why you have a large European population here. Now, the irony of this area is that I've been tracking very closely the deportations of undocumented people here in Northport, because it's part of Sarasota County where I pull my all my body cam footage, so I get to see all the arrests. And one peculiar thing that I found is that a lot of the people that were undocumented were the ones that had American flags on their driveway. So it's kind of like you know, they're undocumented, but then they're trying to look American. It's hysterical, but it happens. Born in East LA. So that's one thing that I noticed while looking at arrest records, because when you pull up the arrest record, it'll give you the address and all that. Now, you can't put that on YouTube because it violates privacy rights, but if you go to the county records, you can look it up. Every time somebody gets arrested and get put on ice hold, you can get all their information. And I've been watching, to see what areas have had the most deportations. And surprisingly, here in Northport, these neighborhoods here have had a lot of deportations, and predominantly Europeans. Well, there it is, Warm Mineral Springs. This is what attracted so many Europeans to this part of Sarasota County. So this little area directly adjacent to Warm Mineral Springs, a lot of Europeans, Brazilians, and all those people live around here. And a lot of the Ukrainians, for example, have a lot of money. Ukraine's not a poor country. And the ones that chose to live in Southwest Florida particularly aren't going to be poor people. So they got money, and they're not going to stick around and get deported. A lot of them are going to move to other countries like Mexico, wherever they can find opportunity, really. So this area here, you're starting to see a lot of for sale signs everywhere because these people are like, hey, we're not going to stick around and get deported. So as I'm looking through Sarasota County arrest records, I've noticed quite a few people in this little neighborhood here who are getting deported. Right here, you got apartments for rent. A lot of these apartments and duplexes here are vacant right now. You see a lot of American flags out here, but what's interesting is a lot of deportations have those. All these little duplexes and rental properties out here, a lot of them are empty now. So this part of Northport near Warm Mineral Springs is probably one of the hardest hits when it comes to an exodus of people migrating out of these communities. It's ironic that the Spaniards were out here like in the 1500s, and even the street names were Spanish out here. But they don't want Spanish people now. Almost ran over some knucklehead kid on a bicycle that just flew out in the road without looking. And again, what's weird about this area is the amount of American flags that you see everywhere. But let me just remind you that as I'm looking through these arrest logs of people who are getting deported, a lot of them have American flags. So it's kind of a deceptive little practice there. And really, this isn't an attractive area. I mean, the real estate's affordable here, but in Northport, you're not even close to, you're not in, let's say, Fort Myers, or not in Sarasota. You're kind of somewhere in the middle. As you look down these streets, there's for sale signs on just about every one of these streets. And, well, that's just what's happening here. And it's going to be tough for people to want to live out here because there's not really much going on. Recently, a video surfaced out of Anna Maria Island where a Russian or Ukrainian woman was racially attacking Hispanics with racial slurs and stuff like that. But it's interesting how since the immigration changes started to happen, Russians and Ukrainians have kind of disappeared from this metropolitan area. You just don't see as many. Now you have to consider that Europeans that are undocumented have much better options, stronger passports than people from Latin America. So it only makes sense that when immigration pressure got heavy, a lot of those Europeans, Russians, Ukrainians decided to leave the United States. So they're one of the few immigrant groups that really quickly vacated because, again, they have stronger passports and they have more options than Latin Americans. They speak other languages. They can be productive in other parts of the world. They don't exactly have to end up in the United States. So a lot of them left the United States to other parts of the world where they can be better catered to. But nonetheless, it is interesting. This looks like an abandoned construction site right here. It's been sitting so long, there's even grass growing around it. So people definitely changed their plans about living in this area. So this is just a clue of what happened here. People thought they were going to build houses, and well, they seem to change their minds pretty quickly about living here in the United States. I think the real irony of this whole situation is, for example, watching that video of the Ukrainians or Russians that were going around harassing Latinos for being undocumented, and now they themselves are having to disappear. There were just so many Europeans and Australians and people that they looked like they were white, and they were flying under the radar. But recently, a lot of them have been getting arrested. Particularly the British people, they go out and they party. The Brazilians as well, they party, they drink. You may have seen the recent video on my YouTube channel where the Brazilians got kicked out of a nightclub, and they clash with people. They don't really and part of the issue could just be that they're more proud. They're very proud because of their European it's not a surprise that when they go out to party and they go to downtown, they get into fights with people and they get arrested and they get deported. And it's been happening quite a bit. Because they're very proud and they're out drinking and partying and they're full of themselves, when they go out to party at the nightclubs and bars and stuff like that, they're very easily race baited into arguments and fights, and then they get kicked out, cops show up, they get arrested, and it leads to a deportation. And Europeans and people from other countries, you know, they go out for a drink or something, they're out partying, drinking, hanging out, and they don't realize that, you know, there's people there that are race baiting them. So this has been like a thing here in Sarasota, where when these undocumented people go out and they party and drink, people start crap with them. They insult them racially. They get race baited into fighting, and when the cops show up, the undocumented person always gets arrested. There's no way around that. With Russians and Ukrainians, one of the favorite methods of entering the United States are visas. You know, there's visas for students, there's fiancé visas, and the Europeans kind of exploit those loopholes to come over here. They'll marry somebody who's American to get their papers and stuff like that. I occasionally Uber drive up in this area and I talk to people that live here, and the young people and the migrants tell me, and anybody who's not white basically and old, even white kids tell me that they feel it too, you know, because they're not old and white. Basically, if you're not old and white, there's a lot of police profiling here, and they kind of antagonize the population. People tell me they get pulled over several times a year. A lot of people have told me they move from other places and they feel like the police is constantly profiling them. And it's not one or two people. It's incredible. Like when I come Uber drive over here and I ask people about what they think about their community, and one of the most common things that I hear from young people is police profiling. And if you ask old people what the problem is, well, they'll tell you that the young kids are racing cars and they're causing havoc and they're dressing like little hoodlums. So unfortunately, the voter power is behind the old white people, and they, for some reason or another, want to antagonize the rest of the population. So it's a horrible place for young people. So that's kind of the dynamic of Charlotte County, not so much Sarasota County. Yeah. I don't know if they're from Naples. They're all over Naples. Yeah. So yeah, we used to eat them down in Naples. This area has a lot of restaurants and things have come in. Like this area used to have nothing, and now there's a little bit of everything. They've been building a lot of apartments, and there are a lot of young people moving out here. It isn't just old people here. The problem is the perception of young people. You may not know how old you are, but you're getting there. Pretty soon you need to get somebody to wipe your butt for you, and it ain't gonna be an old person. All right, guys, so there's a little Primo's Pizza here now in Northport. We're very familiar with them from living down in Naples. They're really affordable, and it's a Southwest Florida staple. So let's get in here and try a little Primo. Didn't I tell you that guy looked like a cop? Because he was a cop. Okay. I saw him, I was like... So for many years, one of the biggest complaints about this area has to be the lack of things to do. Well, recently there is more to do here, like this shopping plaza. There used to be nothing in Northport. They're bringing in more stuff. Like we just had Little Primo's Pizza. Obviously, anywhere in Florida, you're going to have your Publix. But there have been a lot of restaurants opening and things to do here, so it's not quite the boring place it used to be. Who the crap is texting you, Katie? Jersey Mike's, a little ice cream place. It's not quite a mall, but it's something. Why is this guy driving at me? All right. I mean, for a place like this, you know, it's a Asia Walk, sushi, T-Mobile. There's a few things in here, and you know, needed a Panera, a Starbucks. You gotta have all that. So as of recently, there has been. Can you just mute that phone, please? As of recently, thank you, love. As of recently, there has been a lot of stuff going in, things to do. It's not quite University Mall in Sarasota, but it's something for the people here to do. Old Navy, Marshalls, places where you can get something to eat. You know, like there's more. And that was for a long time like the biggest complaint about this area. They built a lot of houses, but they're just now catching up on the infrastructure. Now, at least it's getting some infrastructure. At least it's getting some commerce. Places like Lehigh Acres haven't got any. There's a Ross, Dress for Less, Look Like Less. Dick's Sporting Goods. There's a lot of stores here. There's a lot of shopping. It's enough to have something to do. Because the biggest problem with these places in Florida is that they build houses and houses and houses, but they never get around to building things to do. And the jobs fall far behind. I like Bells. So the real issue with all these fast-growing Florida communities is just they're communities in the making. Everything's new, everything's suburban. A lot of things that the communities need, they probably don't have them yet. Places like Cape Coral are just now starting to look like a city. And even then, you're talking, they've been able to accomplish it with some of the most ridiculously high property taxes of anywhere in the state. So I'm just going to do a little drive-through, kind of a continual drive here, so you guys can see what this area looks like. And that way you get a more balanced view of what's actually happening here, not just frame by frame. You can see here a house for sale, I believe, or is that for rent? For rent, I believe, I couldn't tell. But yeah, there's a lot of for rent signs. There's a lot of for sale signs. This guy's got some, what do you got there? Some garbage. Yeah, I mean, they built too much and they're still building. And a lot of people say it's money laundering. They just gotta keep building so they can keep washing the money. I'm not sure what it's about, really. If you're thinking about moving here to Northport, my advice to you would be most likely you're going to get a job in Sarasota. It's about a 30-minute drive to Sarasota. With traffic, it can be up to 45 minutes. It's not a extremely long commute. There's a lot of construction in this area, but construction is not steady work, especially here in Florida. I mean, this stuff comes and it goes. And when it goes, so do a lot of people who can't survive. Giant pothole there. You know, Northport's not a bad community. The old people complain about car racing and loud exhausts. The young people complain about the old people. It's, you know, like, there's still a lot of good things that can be said about Northport. I don't think it's a bad place to live at all. If I were buying a home in Florida, it might be in the top 10 best places to buy a home for me in my circumstance, you know. You'd be close to Sarasota. You'd be close to 30 minutes from beaches, ain't too far. They're not the greatest beaches down here. You know, it's not a bad place to be. But I just want to get the right narrative about what's going on out there, because there's just a lot of misinformation, you know. People are tight for money. People are selling cars. They're selling boats. They're selling the land that they have. They sell houses. People are trying to get money right now. And this area, it's heavily dependent on new home construction. I mean, a lot of the people that live here, that's what they do. It's not really a sustainable way to make a living. I mean, building houses infinitely, it doesn't take a genius to figure out that that doesn't work. At some point, you have to have some type of real industry, and this area lacks it. You know, construction isn't exactly the most sustainable way to make a living. You can make a lot of money for a while, but it's not going to be a forever thing. Healthcare is big down here. It's a lot of old people, a lot of healthcare jobs. There's a few hospitals in the area and facilities. But even like me living in Lakewood Ranch, a lot of people in Lakewood Ranch, what the crap? That's crazy. And that's kind of why old people get angry, you know, like stuff like that. Like I almost hit a kid earlier while driving through the city. He just ran out blindly on a bicycle at full speed on the road without looking. So, yeah, it's kind of a problem The new apartments that they're building out here, if you want to rent, pretty affordable. Nothing crazy. I think they're pretty reasonable in this area, aren't they, Katie?
Yeah.
Yeah, rents are pretty reasonable here. It's not like as crazy as it was some years back. Waffle House right there. I mean, you got the basic stuff: a Publix, a Waffle House, an Applebee's, this, that, like things you'd expect anywhere. I mean, the prices for new homes here are affordable. There was a lot of scamming. Me and Katie almost bought 2 empty lots here in Northport a while back, and we discovered that it was actually, my realtor looked into it, and she was like, "Hey, this is a scam." I mean, if you want to live affordably in Southwest Florida, Northport has everything you need now, and it didn't before. It's a great place to retire. Like I said, living in Lakewood Ranch, even in Lakewood Ranch, close to Sarasota and Branson, much larger cities, a lot of people in Lakewood Ranch commute into Tampa, not into Sarasota or Branson. So there is endemically a benefit to being near a larger city. Why is this guy trapping an armadillo? It's like
random things you see in Florida.
The guy randomly trapping an armadillo.
Let's just trap armadillos
On the side of the road here. Yeah, I mean, there's probably like the worst thing that I would say about this community has to be the old people that have too much time on their hands.
Enough time to think about trapping an armadillo.
Yeah. And you got the police here. They've been pulling people over like crazy. I mean, they've been, especially looking for work trucks. They are targeting work trucks. You know, they're going for the undocumented people. Hey, that's the situation in Northport. We're heading back to Sarasota and Branson. Hope you guys enjoyed today's video.